Who are you? Why are you here? What is your mission? As you ask these questions and ponder your own life, allow your heart and mind to become open. You are about to take a journey beyond your own expectations. From the whisperings of government agencies and the world of secret and sealed records, from the life of extreme clairvoyance, the author of A Light in the Dark, a hypnotherapist and breath practitioner, powerful energy healer, a master of dream inception and astral travel, sought after by secret agencies and hidden groups for her ability to remote view and her unique talent to combine healing modalities with light to ignite each individual flame, bringing those who receive to a remembrance of who they are. Introducing today's host, seeking to reveal the dark places and ultimately to enhance the light, Aurelia T. Helios, the Lady of Light.
Hey, welcome everybody to Lady of Light. I am trying to get my guest connected, Dan Brule. I'm so excited. And so, Danny, I noticed that I gave you the wrong number. So if you could connect to that number and call him, that would be great. So meanwhile, while he's doing that, I'd like to say to those listening, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you and am honored to be a part of a movement I consider to be bringing people to a higher state of consciousness. Let's see. Let me see if he's here. Dan? Okay. No, he's not. So, Danny, if you could give him a call on the number that I wrote down, the new one on there is the current number. Of course, there's a little... Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Dan.
Hello.
So I was just about to introduce you. I'm glad you're here. We made it. Good job for us. All right. So Dan Brule is a world-renowned pioneer in the field of breathwork and the leader of the worldwide spiritual breathing movement. He is one of the originators of breath therapy and was among the first group of internationally certified rebirthers. He is a leading member of Inspiration University, the International Rebirthers Association, and the International Breathwork Foundation. He is a master of prana yoga, the Hindu science of breath, and of Qigong, Chinese medical breathing exercises. More than 100,000 people in over 50 countries now apply Dan's breathing exercises and techniques in their work and in their lives. Among them are Olympic champions and elite martial artists, leading psychotherapists and medical experts, monks, meditators, hospice workers, and yoga teachers, performing artists and personal trainers, substance abuse and pastoral counselors, health practitioners, life coaches, business executives, and peak performers like Tony Robbins, author of recently published book, Just Breathe. And this book is a simple and revolutionary guide that reveals the secrets that elite athletes, champion martial arts, Navy SEAL, warriors, advanced yogis and spiritual masters have always known. When you control your breathing, you control your mind, your body, and your emotions. Welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So getting prepared for the show, I was so giddy, and I was thinking, I'm more excited than if I had the President of the United States on here, because I see things in energy form, right? So to my brain, to my mind, the way I see things, and this isn't to say better, you understand what I'm saying, but your spirit, your energy is so brilliant. I'm so excited to have you. So,
Well, thank you. We're all connected to this amazing spirit, and the breath really does open up our connection to it.
Yes. So, I would love to hear your story and have the listeners as well. I'm excited to get into the book. We've got the next couple hours to delve into this. But at first, what's your story?
Well, my story is a history of the spirit of the breath picking me up by the scruff of my neck and putting putting me face to face with the breath again and again and again, starting from first grade and kindergarten and Catholic school, and for the first time, hearing these words about how God took dust of the earth and formed the body of man and breathed into the nostrils of man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. I mean, something about that was just the most exciting thing I had heard as a child, and, a child's imagination. I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited. It was the most amazing that God is breathing into me, that every breath I take, that's literally God breathing into me. It sparked something in me, and I was never able to really put it down or think about it. And I had a really remarkable experience as an 11-year-old when in Catholic school, guilt and fear are kind of major motivators. Yeah. And by the time I got to be about 11, I started to suspect that maybe a lot of what they were telling me wasn't really true. I mean, we were told if you weren't Catholic, you're going to hell. And if you ever stepped into another church of any other kind, you would go to hell. And so one day in the 4th grade, I skipped school with my cousin Kenny, and we went into every church in our city of New Bedford that we could find. And at the end of the day, I realized, hey, look at that, I'm still here. And so it gave me some courage to begin to explore outside of what I was being taught. And I guess when that happens, the universe begins to support you. And in the 6th grade, it really culminated. It was kind of an interesting moment. The night before, I was studying for a quiz that we were going to have the next day and reading this chapter in the book I was supposed to read. And as I opened the book, I realized the book had been written in 1952. I was like 11 years old at the time, and I realized, hey, this book was written when I was 1 year old. It was written like 10 years ago. Is anything in this book still true? And so I just started, I was in that phase of questioning everything. And I read through the chapter, and I stopped at one point of information that said the chief export of Alaska was whale blubber. And it just seemed hilarious to me. I said, what am I reading? Whale blubber? It sounded so funny. And sure enough, the next day, the nun was looking around for someone to ask a question, and she got me to stand up, and she asked me that very question: what was the chief export of Alaska? And in my mind, I started thinking, wait a minute, I know the answer, but this was true 10 years ago. Is it still true? And you know what? I can go my whole life not knowing that whale blubber is the chief export of Alaska, and I won't miss my calling. It doesn't matter. I don't need this stuff. And what else are these people teaching me that I don't need? And I felt a big door come down that day, and I started to pick and choose what I let into my consciousness. And the breath helped me with that, because if something came into my awareness that didn't resonate with my heart, with my spirit, it was literally difficult for me to breathe. And when something really touched me in a beautiful way, my breath opened up and I could feel this. And so I started using the breath as a gauge for what's true and what's right for me, and who should I be standing next to, and what should I be reading. And so the breath began to be a real personal guide for me. And so I just kept digging into it further and deeper and studying, and it's still happening today.
Wow. Well, I just finished the book, and it is definitely top 10 for me, for sure. And I cannot wait to share it with everybody. It feels like it's put together everything that I've studied, felt, experienced in one book. So thank you for writing it. Really.
Thank you. It's funny, the writing experience, that book is absolutely nothing like the book that I originally sent to the publisher.
Really?
The book I sent was 120,000 words and 35 chapters. And you see what it is. It's like 5 chapters and about It's now down to like,
I want that
I think
book.
70,000 words.
Here's that book.
Well, they said that's the next book that's coming. And I started to feel like, wow, I didn't know what to take out of it. They said, well, you got to get this down to under 75,000 words. And I never thought about a book that way in word count. And so it was a real discipline for me to start to try to figure out, well, what's the most important thing? And fortunately, Simon & Schuster, they're such professionals, and they gave me a wonderful team of midwives. They really wanted to see this book, and they wanted something mainstream, and I'm not really a mainstream guy. And so
I like that.
Yeah, but I'm very pleased with it. They gave me a really wonderful editor, Emily Hahn, who's just amazingly talented, and she made it so easy for me. When it came time for me to try to cut this book down in half, basically, I didn't know where to start. She said, well, how about this? We do a book that has breathing for body or physical health, for the mind, and for spirit. And my first reply was, hey, breath work teaches us we can't separate those things. Those aren't distinct compartments. Breathing brings them together and they overlap, and I wouldn't know what to do. So she made it really easy. She said, well, B stands for body, M stands for mind, and S stands for spirit. So go through all the chapters and just put, BMS, SMB, DSM. And I think I was into the second chapter and I didn't know where to put it. So I just started putting anything, SMB, DMS. But she was very pleased. She sent me back 40,000 words, and she had structured the book in a very general kind of skeleton way, and said, okay, put back 20,000 words. So I got to go back over all my stuff and put in the parts that I thought, that I really didn't want to leave out. And through the process of editing over the next few months, it was actually turned into a very enjoyable process. I started to get a sense, many times I'm preaching to the choir, people who, bring me in for a seminar or a workshop, they're already into this kind of thing. And so it was a very good exercise for me to really, write a book for people who they really haven't really thought about breathing, and they really need to.
Yeah.
So the whole process was really enjoyable, really fun, and I'm very pleased. And it's kind of an exciting adventure, the whole publishing experience.
Yeah, well, I also
that was a good breath. That was a good breath. That was something just came out of you. I like that.
Yes, thank you. I wrote a book as well, but I did not get it published, but I do offer it for free on my website, enhancelight.com. People can go download the PDF. But that book is one that is not edited and by any, like, I like the book because it has to be read by the listener that needs to read it. And you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And yes. And so, but with this book, what I was so excited about was that this could be for anybody. And it translated, all the stuff that into a very simple language, I feel. And in a way that you backed it up with science, backed it up with proof and all these things for these very left-brained creatures, no judgment, but this planet is, right? And
yeah.
And they need to know where the backup is. They needed some type of program. And so that's what got me so excited, is that this is a tool I could hand to so many people and say, just read this. Just listen to it. And of course I listen to it. And anybody that I would say that's an awesome way to do it because it's you reading it, Dan. And so
the audiobook. Yeah. That was a fun experience too, going into the studio and reading the book out loud to myself. And, again, having professionals makes such a difference. Really, that experience was really great. And I'm glad. Yeah, the audiobook is actually, we just launched like about 2 weeks ago or so, but the audiobook is outselling the hardcover by a significant amount. So I think audiobooks seem to be the way to go for a lot of people.
Yes. Well, it has you in it too. That's what adds to it. I mean, the book definitely does, but honestly, I can feel the fact that you're having to work with humans on this planet, and you're having to, not, try to translate everything that you've experienced in some simple words. And what's great is you did put yourself in it. And so there's that human side, and everybody feels, I feel like for me, I try to tap into the egregore of those, the general public of what they would be experiencing, right? And kind of see what's going on. And everybody's going to have their personal experience, but I feel like there's something that feels really clean about it. And then when you read it, the subtle stuff happens, the subtle energy behind it. And so that's why I was all excited. I went on a walk while I was listening to it, came back, told my husband, he's like, I know, I told you, cause he's the one that told me about this. And I was like, oh, I don't do gurus. They're boring to me. And he's like, no, seriously.
Well, I'm just happy that, 40 years ago, I felt like a voice crying out in the desert. People, breathing, medical people and scientific people going, what are you talking about, this pop psychology and woo-woo, new age stuff? Hey, but 40 years later, the science and medicine has come on board in a big way, and it's a lot of unarguable science. And I have a lot of people keeping their eye open for me to scout, any new information coming. And just this past week, Stanford University published a study showing that people who breathe slowly and deeply during their sleep, they have more energy, they're more calm, they sleep better, they perform better. And for me, that's duh. Well, of course. We have to wait till. Do you need a scientific test to prove that? I mean, isn't that something we all feel? So I'm just happy that the medical and scientific people have come on board, and there's so much unarguable science now, But I'm on to more stuff now. I'm on to the next thing. So, And so the things that are getting validated and confirmed now, for me, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, sure. But what about this? What about that? What about this possibility? And, I'm excited about, what's the next level? Where can we take this? What else is possible?
Well,
and I don't have to
I feel
wait.
like this book helps people to initiate to the next level. Does that make sense?
They have to do it themselves.
Yes.
Anybody who plays with their breathing in any way, or observes their breathing, or practices any kind of breathing, is going to get some result. It's guaranteed. And so what I like to do is I like to encourage people to just do that. Just play with any breathing exercise, any technique, just to get going. And then your intuition will click in, and you'll be guided to the best exercise or technique or meditation or teacher or book or whatever for you, because breathing is inspiration. We're literally inspired when we breathe, and we get amazing ideas, and we have energy to be creative and to heal ourselves. It's like plugging into the source of life when we open to the breath. And so that's my only job, is to just turn people on to their own breathing. And no one can do it for us. That's bad news, because in our culture, we like somebody else to just, hey, fix me, or you do it for me, or go to the doctor and give me a pill, and so the only people that really can benefit from breath work are people who are self-motivated and who want to empower themselves, and they don't just want somebody else to fix them or depend on the pharmaceutical industry. They really want to get a handle on their own potential. And the Spirit of Breath is going, oh yeah, well, I'll help you with that.
It's so true. So a quick story. 20 years ago, me and my husband were newlyweds, and we were trying to get pregnant. We were excited to start our family, and I had a dream where a little girl came to me and said, I'm not coming unless you do a rebirth. Now, I had been introduced, to this man, Valen Spears, who had been trained by no one, of course, who, Leonard Orr.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was coming to Utah and was going to do an event, and I resisted, but this dream came, and I had my first rebirth in this event, and I got pregnant that next month. And this girl is now almost 19, and she is brilliant. And thankfully, I started rebirthing and breathing from then on. It changed how I parented. It allowed me, I feel like, to be more conscious of what's the best way and so on. So for me, the breath work is so personal, and I've kind of kept it quiet, because people say, what do you mean? That's so strange. And I just kind of felt like I had to be isolated. But as everything that recently for me is coming out, and I'm admitting and opening up, it's like just sharing this information is so healing, because it's like this is a tool that will shift everything. And it's not something, it's not even new. It's just memory.
It's right under our nose. We overlook it. We underestimate it. The simplest things are always the most powerful. And as things are accelerating on the planet, which they are, the breath is the tool for our time. In fact, when I'm working with people personally, my motive, my intention, the purpose of the training is to get people to relax into intensity. Relax into intensity, because things are getting intense on this planet. And if you can't relax into it, you're going to be pushed and pulled and thrown and run over and squished or whatever, And so we have to raise our vibrations, but we also have to learn how to relax into more energy, because things are intensifying. And so we use the breath to generate energy, and we practice relaxing into it. So it's a self-paced way of opening to more and more energy, getting comfortable with more and more energy, and not getting thrown around and spun off and pushed and pulled by, this lots of energies that's happening in the world. And we have to start with our own mind-body system, because that's what reacts to everything, right? The way my mind-body system has been trained or conditioned, I have certain reactions, and when something happens, my system clicks in, and I have a reaction that comes from my system. It's almost like being a machine or a robot. And so we have to develop the ability to choose our responses and not just let our survival, conditioning and programming click in. And so I talk about it like repatterning the mind-body system, teaching it new ways to respond to thoughts and feelings and emotions and situations, and kind of up-leveling the programs and rewiring our body-mind system. Because when you don't have time to think, it's your training that clicks in. And as much as consciously we would like to be loving and we would like to be peaceful, when the poop hits the fan, our system just takes over. Our survival defenses, our conditioning take over, and they usurp our power. And unless you've practiced being in those moments and choosing a loving response or a peaceful response, then you're going to get taken over by some entity, some program, some habit, some outdated survival reaction, I'm working with a lot of people, and that seems to be a common theme, that a lot of our survival programs have outlived their usefulness, but they still kick in those moments, and life gives us moments when we have an opportunity. And if in that moment our reaction is not resourceful, we miss the opportunity, and we have to wait till life gives us another one. And so the mantra that I teach people, which is actually a practice, is open and expand, relax and let go. And that's an inhale, open and expand, and an exhale, relax and let go. And when we teach our system to do that, so even before our mind reacts, before our body tenses up, before we have an emotional reaction, the breath is activated. The breath opens us and expands us and relaxes us. Now we're in the best possible place to make a choice, and a chosen response versus an unconscious or dysfunctional reaction. And so the breath gives us this ability to really be who we are in every moment, because how many times have we had this experience where something happens and you just say something or you do something and later you think, oh my God, what was I thinking? I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. And you have to try to clean up a mess, you know? Mm-hmm. So being able to drop into our center in the middle of chaos, to be able to come from a place of peace within ourselves, regardless of what's happening in us and around us, that's freedom. And that's the kind of freedom that I love that comes from the breath. It's like the highest use of the breath in my mind is to use the breath for those kinds of purposes.
Yes. Open and respond, relax and let go. It's so powerful.
Open and expand, relax and let go. Yeah.
It's lovely. It's like I have, when I was going through this book, I just couldn't believe how synchronistic. Everything that you've done has been what I'm studying or what I've studied, what I've loved, like being with Babaji. I mean, I want to talk about that a little bit later because I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I know, right? So just so many things, like learning to clear the chakras with the simple affirmations. And so I love your energy because it's similar to mine. Like I love to be, what's the word? Like, you know, to be enlightened and to be at peace and calm. But I also am extremely excited and energetic to like, because I feel like there's so much going on and there's so many possibilities and so many people are like not conscious of this. And so I'm excited to bring them to that conscious state and to say, look what we've got, look what's going on, look what we can do, look how many options. Look, and you have that similar thing. I don't know if you heard much in the beginning. I think you missed out on the opening. I worked for a special quote group a while ago, and I won't say who they are, but I worked as what's called a psychic or an intuit, and while I did this, I was able to tap into what's going on for not just the nation but the world, and what's really going on underneath everything or behind everything. And what that had me doing was, I mean, after that, I became passionate to educate people on what's really happening so that then they would be conscious. And I felt like it was my responsibility. I was given this key that said, you see this now, you got to let others know. And I see you, and it was interesting. I was connecting to your specific, because I kind of see things in that form. Who these keys, right? Well, my husband was saying, I know that you could be certified. We have this whole, because this is kind of a conspiracy station, right? We talk about, well, what is really certification and who decided and where does it come from? And, you know, there's that kind of thing. But I said, you know, I think of it like he holds a key, and maybe you got this key before. I'm one of those that likes to think there was a before, right? And this you said at some point, I'm willing to share this key, and maybe you say it now, I'm willing to share this key that it is going to let people come to the next level, to become aware of something that they don't remember. And when I connected that, I felt like you are walking on this planet, fulfilling your mission so beautifully without rejecting what feels like, to me, you're not rejecting your call. You're actually doing, like, one of the ways, sorry I have to keep going, but one of the things that impressed me was how many times you honored other individuals in your book. You just embraced them and loved them so deeply. You said, I honor so-and-so for what they taught, and here's what they can teach you. And I earn so-and-so for what they taught, and here's what they can teach you. You weren't like, hey, I'm the know-it-all, and I'm the only one that knows. You were like, no, I hold a piece to the puzzle, and here's some others that hold the piece to this puzzle, and tap into their power and tap into mine.
Yeah. And it's like an obligation, isn't it? If we are given a gift, we have to pass it on. I have to. I don't know how it's possible not to. And,
right.
You know, you mentioned Babaji, and so many times that, I mean, the greatest gifts I was given, the very first urge when you're given something is to give it to somebody else. At least that's my experience. Yes. And so sometimes we feel like, well, I don't know it well enough. I'm not ready. I'm not smart enough, blah, blah, blah. And so breathing kind of cuts through all that, because you can learn in a very short time to something to benefit yourself. And at the same time, if you can benefit yourself, you can pass it on to somebody else. And so I like to start with the very simple things. And you mentioned this whole consciousness and waking up. And that happens to be the very first, let's say, exercise or technique or lesson in breath work is how do we use breathing to become more conscious? And the fact is, the more conscious I become of my breathing, the more conscious I become of many other things automatically. The more aware I am of my breath, the more aware I become of my thoughts, my feelings, my reactions, my posture, my beliefs, my situation, my surroundings. And so the very first exercise is about breath awareness. It's mindfulness training. And so we're immediately plugged into a process that makes us more conscious, more aware. We begin to wake up to things that we were unconscious of, not aware of. And that is always stimulates growth and healing. Whenever we become more conscious, we become more human. We become more of who we really are. And so that's the very first practice in breath work is breathing for the purpose of becoming more aware. It's a mindfulness practice. And nobody needs any lessons in it. You simply observe your breathing. You simply take the time to just notice your breath, watch your breathing, listen to your breathing, feel the breath, and you're already into the process. The process has already begun, and from there, things start to open and accelerate, and we're guided by the breath itself, by our intuition, by our higher self, by our heart, whatever you want to call it. The breath starts to increase our awareness and our consciousness of these higher abilities that we have and all the support we have in the universe. I mean, the people I write about in my book happen to be people that I know personally, and we share so much because they're passionate about the breath. They work in different fields, but the breath brings us all together. It doesn't matter what field you're in, what job you have, where you come from. The breath is this universal equalizer, it's the unifier.
There was a part in your book where you said, every time we take a breath, we're in this breath bubble. So I saw that. I saw that every breath I take is connected to every breath everybody else is taking. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Right. And I think that's one of the things that kind of gets shut down when we're young. We're literally sucking off the same bubble of air, everyone on this planet. And so it's not just a pretty spiritual idea or pretty philosophy. It's a fact and reality. The breath that's in me now was literally in someone else a short time ago. And the breath that's in me now is going to be in the dog outside or the bird or the trees or the next person who walks down the street. And so the breath literally connects us. And that's kind of scary because if you begin to feel everyone's feelings and all of their thoughts, it's really hard to keep your balance. It's hard to know who you are. And so I think as infants, as children, we kind of turn those abilities down just so we can cope. And then by the time we're strong enough, it's like a tree. If you're planting a tree, you put a little fence around it. You protect it until it's big enough. Then it doesn't need the fence anymore. But then by then, you've forgotten what you forgot. And so the breath wakes us up to those original abilities that we had.
Yes. Oh, in your book, you have a foreword by Tony Robbins. And, when you're in, and I want to read it, but I was going to explain, okay, so there's a lot of people that are searching for answers and looking and wanting to find something. And I love that the breath is free and it's so, anytime you need it or want it, it's right there. But Tony Robbins says, people always ask me, what's the secret to achieving results? The secret to lasting change? My answer is that you must train yourself to become a master. To become a master of anything takes consistency, commitment, and focus. That's what this book is offering you, the dynamic tools, techniques, practices to teach, guide, and help you create lasting changes in the quality of your life. Yes. It's like we breathe all the time. So consistently we breathe. We're already being consistent. So pat ourselves on the back, right? But
yeah.
but the fact that we can actually see it as this separate entity almost. You explain that a little bit in the book too, where it's something that we can, it's almost like a friend. Hey, can you help me with this one thing? I've got this pain that's showing up for me. What can you do? And you can follow your breath and it will show you how to heal from that.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah, what we get from the breath depends on what we put into it. I think it was Eckhart Tolle or someone said, if you watch a child play, they don't get joy out of what they do. They put joy into what they do. Yes. And so as we begin to put more awareness into our breathing, the breath pays us back. It begins to reveal things about us, about ourselves, about life, about others. It becomes a true guide. I think the breath is the Holy Spirit. And so, and it should be accessible to everyone. It shouldn't be, when people start to give me methods and techniques that start to get really complicated, the first question in my mind says, wait a minute, if a kid cannot understand this, it ain't true. It's gotta be accessible to a child. Otherwise it just wouldn't be fair. And life wouldn't do that to us. It wouldn't make us, we have to be very clever and smart and study for years before we can. It's gotta be something that's very accessible. And that's what the breath is. It's immediately accessible. We just haven't trained. We haven't practiced. We haven't explored or developed the ability. And so that's all we need to do is just start to practice any simple thing, and very quickly our skills build.
Yes. Yes. In your book, you talk about something else where, when we're little, we use, we're taught good and bad and how horrible that is. But what if we shifted it to good and better? Everything we do is good and better.
Yeah, you can feel that, right? I mean, imagine a little child. You say, oh, that's good. That's bad. Oh, geez, that hurts. And then you change that to, well, that's good, but this is better. And I got that from Michael Hewitt Gleason, The School of Thinking. Really a wonderful guy. And that's that little model that comes from him. And it's really, what do we need good and bad for if we have good and better? What can you accomplish with good and bad that you can't accomplish with good and better? If a little child is writing on a white leather sofa with a magic marker, you go, whoa, stop. But you can say, okay, that's good. Maybe this is an artist. And now you're going to punish them and you just killed the artist of the future. So instead you say, well, okay, that's good. But here's a piece of paper. It's better if you do it on the paper. And now you don't have to make the child bad. Because, I coach a lot of psychotherapists and counselors, and years ago, I got into, it just really disturbed me when I heard for the first time this person, it's almost like being politically correct. I heard her say to the child, well, it's not that I don't like you. I don't like what you're doing. It's not that you're bad. It's just what you're doing is bad. And I raged against that, because for a child, they are what they do. They don't have this sophisticated little mind that goes, they can separate what they do from who they are. If I'm a little kid playing with a car, I am the car. I can't separate what I do from who I am. And maybe that's what people need to heal. And that the whole good bad thing, don't get me going on that, because I'll never get off of it. It's unnecessary. We don't need, it's a divisive thing. It may be just, it's violent. It's good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, us, them. It's violent. It's divisive. And if we take that kind of thinking into our inner world, we're going to do violence on our inner child. And especially in breath work, it's one of the main things I talk about at our seminars is, look, we're going to do inner work. And if you take that concept, good, bad, into you when you do inner work. You're going to do violence on your inner child, and the most delicate part of you is going to hide from you because of that divisive, dualistic kind of thinking. We can't pierce the source of life with dualistic thinking because it's about unity. It's about oneness. We have to stop that if we're going to take this step upward towards oneness. And it's a concept. Good and bad is a concept. It's not a real thing except in our mind. And we have to get out of our mind and get to the source of our mind. And one way of doing that is to drop this notion of good and bad. And then maybe we're in an open enough space where we can literally be inspired by something beyond. Rumi talked about it, right? A field beyond good and bad. And let's meet there.
Yes. I'm a product of the breath work, I feel, because my parents actually discovered at the same time I did, 20 years. I was 20. And they started rebirthing and breathing and doing this stuff. And then they started changing. And it kind of freaked me out. It was like, who are these people that are hugging me? And I was like, this isn't okay. This is weird. But at the same time, it was nice. And then they kept saying they were sorry. Sorry for doing this. Sorry for saying that. Sorry for shaming you. And, 20 years later, I love them so much. We have so much fun together. And we're putting on events once a month, sharing the breath with everybody. And last event we were at, I noticed people were like kind of amazed. Me and my husband, my mom and dad were putting on this event, amazed at how we were getting along and just having fun. And we give full credit to the breath. It's so funny. We have a joke where if I'm kind of stressed out, my dad will be like, breathe. I'm like, shut up.
Uh-huh. Well, I have a free download of a book, and it's called Shut Up and Breathe. And it could have been called Why I'm Not a Therapist. Because as soon as people start to whine and about their problems, I just want to say, look, just shut up and just breathe. I mean, I know it sounds simple, but just do it and let's see what happens, okay? So you're welcome. If you want, anyone who's listening, and if you like it also, if you just send an email to office@Breath Mastery or Dan@Breath Mastery and request a link to that ebook. It's called Shut Up and Breathe. Feel free to do that. My publisher asked me not to take the book off my website because they didn't want to take attention away from our new book. And, but I'm so happy to, and it's an ebook. It's downloadable. And, I'll be happy to give it to any of your listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll definitely go get that, download it. In a couple minutes, we're going to be at the top of the hour. We'll just take a break, 5 minutes. Just want to prepare you for that, Dan. And then, everybody's listening, because we'll keep chatting until it comes, but everyone's listening when we get back. I'd like us to get a little more personal. We'll definitely keep talking about more of these things. The thing that's coming to my mind is, it seems so simple, and yet there is some complexity to it because, like Tony Robbins said, it does take dedication, and he claims it takes 110% commitment to reach the level of mastery that you've made it to. What do you think about that?
Well, I kind of agree. I mean, just maybe through stubborn refusal to do anything else in my I've just stayed on this path, and even though lots for many years people just thought the whole thing was just goofy and stupid and everything, and but I just could never, for very short times, could I focus on anything else. And then and so, but it doesn't take discipline. I think that's discipline to me means I'm having to make myself do something. And we get so much pleasure and so much energy and so much good stuff from the breathing. It doesn't take discipline to do it. The more you do it, the more you want to do it. And once you've kind of gotten the knack of a couple of things connected to breathing, and I want to talk about those as we go, and you actually start to feel like, wow, you've got some skill here. You can really start to make pain go away. You can calm yourself down. You can energize yourself. And you can do it quite quickly with just a little bit of practice. That motivates us to dig deeper and say, wow, what else can I do? Where else can I take this? What other skills? And it's like lifting weights. You start with lifting 5 pounds and then 6 and then 10 and then 20. And then who knows, after a couple of years, you can lift the truck. So we practice breathing for little, simple, easy things, and we gradually build on the skills until we get to the point where we can do amazing things.
Wow. So what are your thoughts on hypnotherapy?
I think we're hypnotizing ourselves every day with every thought we think, with every emotion that we repeat, with every belief that we affirm. We're in a process of self-hypnotism, and it's working against us or it's working for us. But since it's working all the time, you might as well get it working on your own behalf and not against you. Every advertising message we see, every billboard, everything we hear, it's all part of a mass hypnotic trance. And that's why we need to connect to the voice of our spirit and the voice of our true self so we can break through this hypnotic spell that the whole planet is on. It's limiting beliefs about what's possible and who we are. And it's always a rebel. It's always an antisocial, eccentric who seems to crack out and they ignore society, or they hide in their studio or their cave or the ashram until they can kind of get a handle on who they really are and break through this mass mind and start to express something from our true self and not just from our conditioning. I mean, think about it. When a young child, up till 3 or 4 years old, is literally in a hypnotic trance. We have no discriminating consciousness. If you put something in front of the eyes of an infant and then you put it behind your back, for all intents and purposes to that child, that thing doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist. It's not real. And so we don't have discriminating consciousness, and everything is downloaded directly into our subconscious. And so we're given programs that limit who we are. Mm-hmm. And by the time we get old enough and we stop thinking for ourselves, we're already thinking of certain conditions and programs we were giving. And at some point, evolution, our spirit, something calls us to break out of that programming and drop those early programs that we were given so that we can begin to express more of who we really are and not be limited by the early conditioning that we had before we had any choice. I mean, if you or I would have been born in a different family, in a different culture, in a different country, in a different religion, we would be different people, but we would still think we are who we are. And, but we're not, except by the accident of birth. I mean, that was the big kind of opening, enlightening experience I had as an 11-year-old, that day with the whale blubber. And I realized, I don't need to hear what these people are trying to make me think anymore. In fact, I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to take in any more of what they're trying to convince me is real. And that day I went home and I sat behind the mills of factories where I live, and I was looking through a copy of National Geographic magazine, and I saw this picture of these African boys, and the picture was frozen, and they were all frozen in motion, and there was dust in the air, and they had a stick in their hand, and there was a coconut on the ground. And I looked at I had my baseball bat and my baseball with me. And I remember thinking, wow, if I would have been born in Africa, I would have a stick and a coconut instead of a baseball bat and a baseball. And I would be eating whatever they ate, and I would be believing whatever they believed. But I would still be me. And I started to think, wait a minute, who is this me? I could have been born 100 years ago, but I'd still be me. I could have been born a Jew instead of a Catholic, and I would be believing what little Jewish boys believe instead of what little Catholic boys believe, but I would still be me. I could have been born a girl instead of a boy. I would still be me. Who is this me under all of these, I thought, random, things? And that started me on this quest of who is this me underneath these programs? And the breath appeared as the way to crack open and release these limiting programs.
Music. That's music to my ears. It's just music. I just kept feeling what you were saying in like an art form. And I was like, what does this feel like? What he's saying? It's music. It's like you said, there's so much programming, but to hear the delicate, beautiful, subtle truth come out of your mouth as if it's nothing is music.
I traveled to 52 countries now, and I ask people, I say, look, what's your favorite food? And they'll tell me their favorite food. Now I say, okay, imagine you were born in a different country, in a different family. You think you'd have the same favorite food? Come on, give me a break already, and tell me what you like and tell me what you don't like. And then tell me, if you would have been born in a different religion with different parents and had a different upbringing, do you really think you would like and dislike the same things? Come on. There's something bigger here. And we have to, and the only way to open to it is it's scary to let go of what you think is true.
Right.
It's scary to let go of what everybody else believes. But at some point, that's what we have to do to find our own truth. And in those moments when we're in between and it's scary, the breath is our anchor. The breath is our guide. And it makes navigating those scary moments when it feels like the earth has been ripped out from under your feet and everything that you ever thought was true, you find out isn't. And many people will avoid that at all costs because it's just too scary. And without the tool of the breath, without that guide, then it's very, very difficult. But the breath is like a thread, and we follow it, and it connects us to our source, and it connects us to other people. And so we're grounded in this higher reality while we're, going through these scary transitional moments. It's the tool of our time. It's the way that we can very quickly, accelerate our evolution and up the ante on the planet. Let's accelerate this upward movement. And for every person who gets free, it's easier for everyone else to get free. And the more people I help to get free, the easier it is for me to get free. And the more selfish I am about becoming free myself, the easier it is, the better I serve other people. So it doesn't matter who gets free first because we're all connected. So, and the breath, it doesn't let us forget that. There's no forgetting. Once you really connect to the breath and you feel that through that connection, you're connecting to your own spirit and you're also connecting to other people, there's no going back. You can't forget it. And it hurts if you try to pretend it's not true.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So let's up the ante. That's so good. Let's up the ante. Let's breathe. Let's get to that next level. Let's search for it. It's like the next level actually just makes you more hungry for the next level, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And things accelerate and you get more support, So it's like the universe conspires with us more and more. And so it gets easier and easier. And that's one of the things I learned with, working with Tony Robbins and people like him. If you've done a lot of work on yourself, and Tony's a perfect example. He's a genuine student of life. He's outrageously successful. He's affected the lives of 50 million people. I mean, it's magnificent. And yet he's still very humble. He's still a very genuine student. And he's always learning. He's always growing. And working with someone like him, he's already done a lot of, he's practiced breathing. He's aware of it. He uses it. But just a little tweak, a lot happens with just a slight little change in the way he approached his breathing or the way that he handled it, and all kinds of things opened up. I love working with people like that who have already done a lot of work on themselves.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's just our little cue that we've got a minute. I hope that when we get back, we can keep talking and about these, the breath. I mean, really, it's something that we could keep talking about. That I think for those listening, remember that it isn't really about the words. It's just about the simple breathing. And so, Dan, stick with me and we'll keep going. And everybody else, stay tuned.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Dawn and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys because they have all the technology. They have all these great things that they're going to do. But obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
Did you know there are 3 million edible food plants on Earth, and none have the nutritional value of the hemp plant? HempUSA.org offers you hemp protein powder. It does not contain chemicals or THC, is non-GMO, and is 100% gluten-free. Hemp protein powder burns fat, builds muscle, contains 53% protein, and feeds the body the nutrients it needs. Call 888-910-4367 and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org. HempUSA.org introduces 3 brand new detox formulations of micro plant powder. Brain Fuel for depression, bipolar disorders, and stress. Total Care, anti-cancer agent that cleans the liver and organs and increases memory. Rejuvenate, invigorates and heals the body, mind, and spirit. These products are your alternative to pharmaceuticals. Call 888-910-4367 and like us on Facebook. We ship worldwide. Only at HempUSA.org.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride, and we kill those people. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.
From the whisperings of government agencies and the world of secret and sealed records, from the life of extreme clairvoyance, the author of A Light in the Dark, a hypnotherapist and breath practitioner, powerful energy healer. Introducing today's host, seeking to reveal the dark places and ultimately to enhance the light, Aurelia T. Helios, the Lady of Light.
All right, welcome back, everybody. All right, so I wanted to read something really quick from Dan's book. He does a quick meditation, but he says, imagine breathing into the heart, from the heart. Heart goes from the natural feeling, peace, passion, gratitude. Generate the energy of the sun, energy as you breathe. Send this energy to every cell of your body. And then on the exhale, allow that energy to radiate out through the pores of your skin, like rays of the sun, those rays that breathe, carrying your heartfelt intentions out in all directions to everything and everyone. With this meditation, you become a source, a generator, a channel of love energy, and you are the first fortunate recipient of it. Oh, I love it. Okay, so there's a few things in your book that there's a whole, at the end, there's all these different breath patterns and techniques that you share and teach with everybody. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I like to start from the beginning, and if we use what nature's already given us, like a sigh of relief, for example. A sigh of relief isn't really a technique, but when you do it consciously, it becomes one. And that sigh of relief communicates so much to our psyche, to the cells of our body, to our unconscious or subconscious mind, to our brain, to our nervous system. It's extremely powerful. And so that's one of the first things that I like to teach people, because they already know how to do it. They're just not accustomed to doing it consciously, doing it frequently, and doing it for no reason at all, just because it feels good and it's good for you. So that's where I like to start. And, scientific medical people have to have a definition for everything. And so as it turns out, I was curious myself that medical people define a sigh of relief in terms of the inhale. And they say a sigh is an inhale that's twice as big as your normal tidal volume, twice as big as your average breath that you're taking. And in fact, nature makes us do this about 12 times an hour, or every 5 minutes. You will take a breath that's twice as big as usual, and then that triggers the sigh of relief, the extra stretching of the muscles, the extra hyperinflation of the lungs, and that triggers a deeper letting go, a deeper release. So I just encourage people to go ahead and do that consciously, like right now, taking a long inhale and feel like you're putting one inhale on top of the other. You pull in an inhale, and then you add a little stretch, you add a little expansion, and then you let go. So you make the inhale twice as big as usual, and then let it go in an exaggerated way. And for that moment, enjoy the letting go. Enjoy the feelings of expansion, the stretching from side to side, front to back, top to bottom, while you breathe in that extra breath. And then feel yourself letting go on the exhale. Give yourself pleasure on the exhale. And now you're doing breath work. And it's the perfect place to start. You've just opened yourself to more energy by taking in a bigger breath, and you just let go. And once you start to practice, you realize, okay, if I'm going to let my breath go, Why don't I let the tension in my neck go? Let the tension in my shoulders go. Let the tension in my jaw go. Let the tension in my forehead go. And so now you're not just letting go of the breath, but you're letting go of tension. And when you let go of tension and you become softer, you become more open. Now you're open to something. You're in a better space to receive because you're open and you're soft and you're relaxed. And now spirit can slip into you. And so you could take that practice to the next level where you do it laying down. And then you give yourself one sigh of relief after the next, very gently, very carefully, very slowly, very consciously. And you just repeat it. One big sigh of relief, enjoy it. Then another big sigh of relief, enjoy it. You're laying down. Maybe you'll start to get dizzy. That's a good sign. You're already laying down. Nothing to worry about. You can get as dizzy as you like. Some people get afraid of the symptoms that start to come up when they breathe freely and when they relax, because we forget that one way of not feeling is holding the breath. One way of not expressing is holding the breath. And one way of keeping out toxic energies is holding the breath. One way of keeping feelings and emotions locked inside is holding the breath. And so as soon as we stop holding the breath, all kinds of things want to come up and come out. And all kinds of things want to come in and fill us. And that gets scary. It triggers our survival reflex, and we hold our breath and we stop. So starting with a sigh of relief and deliberately focusing on relaxation. And then if you start to feel any feelings that you want to stop or avoid, do the opposite. Relax and accept them and allow them. And you're now on a very natural healing path, and your breath will guide you, and the breathing is perfectly safe. And so if you start to feel anxious, what do? You take in a breath and you relax. You start to feel afraid, what do? You take in a breath and you relax. You start to have an uncomfortable feeling in your body, what do? You open and expand, you relax and let go. And you're on a natural healing path. And it's that simple. Sigh of relief, again and again. And it's really funny. We discovered this, or we played with it, because it occurred to me one time in observing people that when you're in pain, the breath gets locked up, your body gets tense, your mind kind of narrows and gets contracted. Your whole system is contracting because of the pain. And what you need to do is expand, but you can't expand because the forces of contraction are so strong. And as soon as the pain leaves, the first thing a person does is they have a sigh of relief. Every time a person has pain and the pain goes away, in that moment, a sigh of relief expresses naturally, automatically. And it's the same thing with fear and anxiety. If you're afraid or you're anxious and the fear or anxiety passes, you experience a sigh of relief. You don't make it happen. You don't do it on purpose. It's a natural response of the system. So when I started observing that, I thought, hey, wait a minute. If every time we go from a state of pain to no pain or fear to no fear, this sigh of relief happens by itself, why don't we start to invite the sigh of relief and see if it doesn't start to move us from one state to another? And sure enough, that's exactly how it works. When you take a sigh of relief, you send a message to your brain, to that ancient lizard brain, and it says, hey, wait a minute, I have time to take in a slow inhale. I must be safe. Everything must be okay. I can stop and smell the flowers. Or I'm relaxing and letting my breath go in a sigh of relief right now. I must be safe. Everything must be okay. And so that sigh of relief communicates something to the cells of our body, to our subconscious mind, to our nervous system. I mean, I could tell myself, relax, 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 but my muscles won't listen. However, if I muster up a certain breath and a certain breath that breath communicates the message, and it communicates the energy in a very direct way that the body understands and the body responds. So we're using something that nature gave us, but we're doing it consciously, deliberately, intentionally. We're putting it to work for us instead of waiting for those rare moments when the sigh of relief comes by itself. Let's just start inviting them and see what happens. And do it when someone's insulting you. And do it as soon as you start to feel nervous. And do it when you start to feel uncomfortable. Let that be what you do. And watch the miracles that start to happen. It doesn't get much simpler.
No. You have been with some interesting characters on this planet. Who?
Yeah. I'm very comfortable around crazy people. It makes me feel the more crazy people are, the more comfortable I am with myself. But yes, I have been blessed to be in the presence of some very amazing people, and I've been blessed to have some really wonderful teachers.
Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I lost you for a moment. I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, it got cut out. Yes. Okay. Who do you feel like of all the people that you've studied under or with is like what stands out with you as one of an experience you would love to share?
Well, meeting Babaji in the flesh. Babaji is written about in Paramahansa Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and he's talked about as, Yogananda's guru's guru. He's the immortal Christ of India. He materializes and dematerializes. He's a phenomenon more than a person, and having the amazing, blessing to actually be with him and meet him in the flesh is something. I mean, it's a high point of my life, and I have so many Babaji stories, because I spent time with him, and it starts from the first grade when the nuns told us, in Catholic school, that we all have a guardian angel, and a personal guardian angel assigned to us that's always with us, always helping, ready, guiding us. And as a small child, this is so vivid, it's so real. And they even, she even told us, that means that when you go to the cafeteria and you're having lunch, remember to leave a little space on the side of you for your guardian angel. And when you're sitting at your desk, you leave a little space for your guardian angel to sit with you. And, me as a child, that was real. I was doing that stuff, and I don't know how long it lasted. You get older, you grow, whatever. It kind of disappeared. I don't know how long it stayed with me. But then my very first day at the ashram, when I arrived at the ashram and I climbed in, getting to the ashram back in 1980, you fly to India and you take a train, you take a bus, and taxi, and then you got to hike and you got to climb and you got to walk, and you finally get there and you're exhausted and it's a long trip, and you're at the foot of the ashram and there's 108 steps to go up the cliff to the ashram. So when I finally got there, I saw this wonderful place to sit. It was under this big tree, and it was so inviting, and there was even a nice soft pillow there. And I thought, wow, what a perfect place to sit. So I went and sat there, and Babaji came running around the corner. He sat right on the side of me, snuggled up to me, and he turned and he looked at me and he just giggled. And he put me right back into kindergarten, and I realized, oh my God, this is my guardian angel. I'm meeting my guardian angel. And I don't really remember much after that. I mean, the things got pretty blurry, and but being with him and being in his presence and receiving energy from him, and was just, I've never been the same, and it's not anything that you can forget or ignore, and he lives in the breath. And so it's impossible to breathe without connecting to God and without connecting to my guide and my teacher and my angel. The breath is the vehicle. It's the vessel. It's the connection. It's the link. It's the bridge. And so I'm never more than a breath away from those really beautiful moments. And it feels like cheating. It's so easy. And I wish everyone had the same ease, no matter what's happening around you, no matter what's happening inside of you, to have this instant access to a place of peace and joy and love, regardless of your physical conditions or your surroundings. To me, that's freedom, and everyone deserves that freedom.
Absolutely. My husband and I have created what we call this the light enhancement movement, where we through the experiences that we had, we brought together this idea that if we just enhance the light, then everything will kind of change from bottom up. And
Whatever we focus on gets bigger. And so we don't want to be focusing on the problems. We don't want to be focusing on the fear and the negativity, because we're feeding it with our awareness, with our light force. So we have to put energy into the light. So that's what increases on the planet, of course. Beautiful mission. I love you.
Well, thank you. Well, and I'm glad you get it. I try to explain it to people. It's very simple because, there's people that are caught up in these ideas and thoughts. And I'm like, no, it's actually pretty simple. It's just enhance the light. It's not that hard. And what we want is to help remind people who they are, what they're capable of, what they can do, and how they can have a really good time while they're here. And I have this meme I share on Instagram because I'm trying to get people involved in this movement of Enhance the Light. And I said, Enhance the Light starts with the breath. And I believe that, and because we have forgotten how to breathe. And, as a midwife, I get to be a part of amazing breathing.
Yeah. What a gift. What a gift to be.
The mom's
oh, yeah. Well, we can learn so much from that. Yep.
Well, yeah, it starts when the mom is in labor, and she just naturally the breath starts to take her with it, and she, as she follows it, she's able to stabilize. And then the baby just shows us all how to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the task of the work or the game is to override these survival programs that we come hardwired. The brain, we have to remember, the brain was not designed to make us happy. It was designed to keep us safe. And so the default pattern is always for the danger, for the negative. If there's a noise in the bushes and I'm an antelope, we have to assume that it's something dangerous. We can't have our first response be to open and embrace and welcome. We have to make sure that it's safe before we can move into that state. So we're working against very ancient programs, but we can consciously override them, and that's our responsibility to actually do that. Our brain is going to focus on the scary things. It's going to focus on the dangerous and negative things. That's a survival program. So we have to take that energy and we have to very consciously direct it where we want it to go. And it's a personal job for each of us. And, but it doesn't take long before the benefits start to accrue. And then it becomes a habit of our system. So you have I see two kinds of people. You see there's 100 things happening. 99 of them are wonderful and one of them is not. guess what they focus on, right? Or we have another kind of person where 100 things are happening, 99 of them are horrible, and one of them is good. And through grace and through practice and through will, what do they focus on? The one beautiful thing, and that becomes the reality that gets manifested. It's our responsibility to up-level our energy and to focus on the light and to intensify the light. That's why we're here.
And the thing is we're creators, right? And so everything we think and it gets created. We're powerful creators. And so I have this thought, like as a group right now, the higher percentage of beings are not necessarily aware of what's going on, but there are those that are waking up and realizing and trying to share this information. And in the book you said, until we're all free, we're not free. And that's what drives us, is like what we can do to bring this wisdom and insight into the lives of everybody in all the homes. And
because we're all connected. We're all connected.
Or you just know.
Yeah. I mean, every cell in our body believes that it's a separate individual entity unto itself. And it is. It breathes, it moves by itself, it excretes waste, it communicates with other cells, and so it is an individual. And yet that cell is part of an organ. And that organ thinks that it's a separate individual organ, which it is. The heart is not the kidney is not the gallbladder, but those organs are part of a bigger system. And that system thinks that it's an individual separate system, but it's part of a bigger one, and on it goes in both directions. And so we just have to expand our sense of self to include these higher and greater expanded reality, and then we get fed by that reality. We get nourished by it. We get energy from it, and it helps us along our way, and it speeds things up. So we just have to, it's a practice of, we can't kill the ego, because as soon as you decide you're going to kill the ego hears you, and it starts to hide, and it'll sabotage, and it'll even pretend it's dead, so you think you're spiritual. And so, no, we have to raise it up. We have to let it play in the game and let it serve us, right? So, we need to be very unique expressions of this one universal energy or light or being in the universe. That's our game. It's a paradox. We are individual, and yet there's something universal about us.
I love that. It's something I came to recently about the ego. It's like it needs our tender attention and connection and patience.
Yeah, we gotta love it to death.
It's like a little kid that needs a lot of attention, just for a little bit to help it understand itself. So I was going to ask you, do you know Wim Hof personally?
Yeah.
And you guys,
he's a wild man. He's a wild man. I've been following him for years, and we've chatted back and forth quite a few times. I interviewed him for one of my one-year seminars, and when I was in Eindhoven, we had a mutual friend, Cora, and so I like him. He's a wild guy.
He is. He's brave. He does all these crazy things. He's willing to be cold.
Yeah, he loves the cold.
The connection.
And I love his method. His basic technique or exercise is, it's a no-brainer. You practice hyperventilation and you practice breath holding. When you practice hyperventilation, you're going to bring up a whole package of feelings and symptoms and sensations and emotions, and if you can relax into them, you grow. And when you hold your breath, you bring up a whole package of symptoms and feelings and sensations and emotions. And if you can relax into them, you grow. And so he has people practicing those two things, hyperventilation and breath holding. And so you can't help but grow. It's a simple thing. But you actually have to do it. And he's very good at motivating people to do it. He pushes them and encourages them, and he's very passionate. I really love his work.
Yeah, so the mission statement that we have is enhance the light by igniting each individual flame, and that each person has something so uniquely beautiful to them, you know. And I was trying to think, okay, what is it that you hold that maybe sets you apart from, you know, some of these beings? What do you think it is?
I'm not attached to who I think I am or what I know, or it's easy for me to put that aside, or you know, and it comes from that experience when I was 11 years old. It was a real thing. I could have been born in Africa, but I would still be me. I could have been born 100 years ago as a Jew, and I would still be me. And so this me I can't hide from anymore. It's not my ego. And so it's like a dance. It's like a dance. You have one foot in each world. And so I've never met a breathing exercise I didn't like. I've never met a breathing teacher that I didn't like. And so it's really easy for me to embrace what other people do as if it's my own, because I feel like they are me. I am them. And if I'm against anyone or against anything, I'm against some part of myself. And maybe it's a part of myself that I've so separated from that it seems like it's someone else. But if I open and expand, I realize, hey, we're really connected. It's not just a philosophy. I can't hurt myself without hurting you, and I can't hurt you without hurting myself, and I can't get around that fact anymore. So I have to embrace everyone. What choice do I have? If I don't embrace everyone, I'm not embracing all that I am. So it's not just philosophy, it's a practice, it's a way of living. And you know, in this world, it's convenient, you know. I have a name, you have a different name, I have my own body, I don't get confused, you know, your body's not my body, and so on. It's a useful, convenient thing in society, but I don't have the ability to forget anymore that that's just part of the story. There's another part of the story that's much bigger, and knowing that and feeling it gives me an edge, I think, over people who maybe they have an intellectual understanding or they would like to believe it, but when push comes to shove, they default in the wrong direction. So, and I think now I've trained my system enough so that when push comes to shove and in those moments of crisis, I open and expand, I relax and let go, and that allows spirit to move through me, and I'm not acting from a separate ego. I'm coming from, you know, the source of myself in all of us. So I'm not just serving myself in that moment. I'm at the service of something bigger. Oh, we lost our connection. Did we lose our connection? No. I see my connection is still ticking. I don't hear you anymore. Sorry about that, Aurelia. Something happened to something technical on the technical side occurred. So we're all here breathing. Sometimes with these higher teachings, circuits start to go a little crazy. The electrical grid starts to go haywire, and electronic devices begin to have issues. So maybe that's what was happening right now, because I seem to be talking to myself. Not the first time. I kind of like it. But I don't hear you anymore, Aurelia. Ariella.
Hello.
Ah, you're back.
Yes. Sorry about that. Weird connection.
That's all right. Yep. My second hand kept ticking on my phone, so it looked like my connection was still there. So, hey, that happens, right? You know, when we're high frequency things begin to occur, electronic devices start to go a little squirrely, you know?
Yes, and I do know a specific group that doesn't love what I talk about sometimes. But, so I was looking at this, the beginning where you've got people speaking about, you know, your book, and they're saying, whose was it that I loved that stood out?
The endorsements in the beginning of the book.
Yes.
Yeah, so many wonderful people gave such great endorsements.
Yes. So Patricia.
Gerbach, yes.
Yes.
Clinical psychiatrist. She and her husband, Richard Brown, have a book called Healing Power of Breath. And they're very mainstream psychiatrists. She's a psychoanalyst and, you know, right in the thick of the scientific medical community. And so it's wonderful that they're turned on to the breath. They're getting real results with it. They're missionaries for breath work and conscious breathing. I'm so grateful that, and she really helped me with the book. She was somebody she's one of my advisors I can turn to make sure that what I'm saying when it comes to the medical scientific stuff is backed up by facts. So yeah, I really appreciate her help in the book.
You're like friends with all the cool people.
A lot of them wouldn't be in the same room together.
Right.
You know,
right.
Yeah. I mean, I have people at opposite ends of the spectrum, you know, who would never, ever end up in the same room together. I'm kind of like the link, you know, between some of these people. It's really quite
Totally.
beautiful.
I could see that. You know, me and my husband met Leonard Orr one time. He taught us some breath technique, and just so cool to be with him and learn. Just for me, things are so much less language than they are that subtle energy. You know, so just being in his presence, I felt like I was in a conversation with him for weeks after. You know, somehow being taught by him. So I have a theory like that. Okay, so what are your thoughts on this? Before this life or whatever, we come in this body, and some people like you are more curious about things like this. Why would you specifically be more curious than somebody else?
I think part of it comes from the very first reactions we get from parents, authority figures, teachers to our own creative exploration. You know, I have a chapter in the book about Barnett Bain, and he has a book called The Book of Doing and Being. He's a Hollywood producer. He does workshops on creativity, and he points out a very interesting fact that if you test a 3-year-old child, 98% of 3-year-old children test as creative geniuses. And if you test a college-age person, 2% test as creative geniuses. What happened to our natural creative genius? It gets stifled by this need or this demand that we do things right, that we focus on certain things at certain times, that we don't do certain things, that we do other things, that we think about this and we don't think about that, and this is right and this is wrong and this is good and this is bad, and it just eats away at our creativity, at our connection to our creative spirit. Because creative people, they go over social lines, they break taboos, they threaten the order of society. And so I think it just gets frightened out of us. And listen, if I'm a small child and I have to choose between the voice of my spirit and the voice of my parents, I'm not stupid. I need food. I need shelter. I'm going to listen to their voice and not the voice of my spirit until I'm big enough and strong enough. And then I can listen to my own voice. But then by then, maybe I can't find it. Maybe I've forgotten it. Maybe, it needs to be reawakened. And that's, for me, that's what the breath is waiting to do for all of us, to reconnect to that original creative spirit. The same energy that built our body in the womb is available to us to rebuild it. And that comes from Leonard Orr, right? that when we do rebirthing and we're connecting to that same life force that was responsible for forming us in the womb, and it can reform and transform us if we can connect to it again. Mm-hmm. So, and when we connect to that energy, that spirit, we connect to our natural abilities that might have been stifled or stunted or suppressed when we were small, and we can wake those abilities up again.
Yes, waking them up. It's like, for some reason, why do we make it complex when it is that easy?
It's so simple, yeah. But you don't have to remember that when we become afraid, we contract. And when we contract, we cut ourselves off from the subtle energies, from the flow of life in us. And so it's a survival reaction that helped us to get this far, but now it's in the way. And we have to learn how to relax in those moments when our system automatically contracts. And the only way to do that is to practice. And breathing is the practice for doing that, because when you breathe in, you are opening and expanding. When you let go of the exhale, you are relaxing. And so you're countering that energetic contraction that occurs when we're afraid, when we're upset, when we're threatened, and so on.
Do you ever feel like, how do I ask this?
Yes, I have moments. Of pain, of fear, of all that stuff. Okay. I have moments. Okay. But I only moments. They pass quickly because my system can't tolerate them anymore. Okay. And I love this game Tony Robbins has started it with his wife, and we had this wonderful conversation about it. And he's putting it out more. He might have even, it's in his work and his seminars, this 90-second rule. You know, he boils everything down. The answer in the end is to be in a beautiful state. If you're in a beautiful state, then what you do is going to work. What you think is going to be good and true. Your choices will be right. Everything flows and follows from being in a beautiful state. And so that's the skill we need. How do we put ourselves into a beautiful state, keep ourselves in a beautiful state, and return to it when we get out? And so his game is he has a 90-second rule. Okay, so if you're not feeling wonderful, you have 90 seconds to indulge in these feelings. But after that, your goal has to be to get back on track. And it lines up with very natural physiological truths. And that is that when we get upset, when we get activated, certain chemicals in our system get produced and they have to run their course. But it takes a minute or 2 minutes before all those chemicals have run their course and we can return to our state. And if we don't return to that state within a minute or two, it's because now we're doing something to feed that and to continue to produce those kinds of chemicals, and we need to shift. And so I love his 90-second rule. Yes. And so I'm down to a little bit less than that. If I start to feel uncomfortable, my breath comes in and it lifts me up. I don't even have to do it myself anymore because I practice enough. If my bliss gets dented, I can only be depressed for a very short time before the breath itself comes in and lifts me up. And if I get tense, if I get contracted, I can only be in that tense, contracted state for a very short time before but the breath itself comes in by itself and shifts me. So that's one of the beautiful miracles about breath work, is that if you practice, pretty soon it starts happening by itself. And then you're really free. And you only have very short moments where you're not free. And the moments come less and less, and they last for shorter and shorter times. They can be more intense. I mean, when I have moments of anger, I read something in one email or one news thing, and I feel this rage come up in me. I have to open and expand, and I have to relax and let go. and I have to breathe in those moments. If there's nothing if I open the newspaper or listen to some story about some child being, raped or molested, or innocent people being, a part of me needs to do something about that. And if I can't do anything about it, I can't think about it. Because if I keep thinking about it without doing anything, I end up, in a horrible state.
Mm-hmm.
Do something, then I'll channel that anger or whatever it is, into something productive. If I can't do anything about it, then I'll just channel the energy. I'll just open to the energy. I'll let my heart transform it into something else, and I'll continue on my merry way. And if an opportunity comes where I can actually do something, then I find myself doing it. And that's the only way I know how to be now.
It's so good. It feels like it's congruent with what I've received as well, because people ask, well, what are you doing to save these, victims and do different things? And I'm like, well, I'm recognizing where my power is and where it isn't currently. And if me sitting around upset about these events and things is going to help it, then I will, but it's not. But creating awareness, if that can help, then that's where my power is. Yeah. And do that. And I do that as much as I can with as much with people's minds understanding. I feel like one thing that's been a bit of a battle is how to translate. Yesterday, my dad said, he was being loving, but he said, you blast people with truth and then they don't know what to do with it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but yeah. It's being raw and authentic, right? And being true, but where's the line? And I've been working on that, of how to be sensitive to where they are,
Yeah. I'm comfortable meeting people where they're at. I've been uncomfortable in my life, and so I can be uncomfortable because I know I can get out at any time. And so I'm not afraid to be uncomfortable. I'm not afraid to be afraid. I'm not afraid to be in pain because I've been those things, and I know I can get out of it if I need to. So I'm willing to go there when I'm called to go there, and but if my mission is to end starvation, I mean, can I physically feed every hungry person in the world? Is that even possible? So I have to find another way to serve that's actually possible, right? And, sometimes just working in our own little way, in our own little corner, if we're all doing that, it all adds up to the big solution. So we just do what we can and just trust what we love and just keep doing that. And I don't know any other way to be.
Well, it has me think about something you said earlier. You really have a sense that you've discovered so many beautiful tools, and they're pretty simple, but you have this calm sense about you that you know that when life hits you and when these things come at you're prepared with this brilliant wisdom. But the part of me that wonders, what do you, all of us, I feel like, ache for something or feel like we're looking for something. Do you ever feel those feelings still?
Yeah, it's what drives me. It's like a fire. You can't put it out. Yeah. And, we do a process at my seminars called What's Important, right? So we ask, okay, what's important? And then you take a breath. And then you ask, what's really important? And you take a breath. And then you ask, what's the most important thing? And you take a breath. And you ask, what's the most important thing for me at this point in my life? And you take a breath. And your mind is going to give you answers. Well, health is important. Freedom is important. Being caring is important. Compassion is important. Balance, harmony. The mind's going to give you all these answers. Every time the mind gives you an answer, you say, thank you. Yep. And then you ask the question again. And you just keep digging. And there's no end to the digging. I'm still digging. And there's no end to it. There's really no end. The more you know, the more you realize there is to know. And the higher you get, the more you realize how high, even heights that you hadn't imagined and you couldn't see from where you were, they appear when you thought you got to the peak, and you get to the peak of the mountain and you see this other bigger mountain on the other side. It's amazing. And there's no end to the process. And so we have to get comfortable with the process and don't get too attached to the outcome or the goal, but really fall in love with the process.
Yeah. I wrote a book. I think I told you, I said it in the beginning, A Light in the Dark, the Field Guide. What I love to do is to have people choose their page. Would you be willing to do this with me, where you pick a number between? Okay, good. So pick a number between 7 and 182, and I'll read it to you.
39.
39. Let's see what it says. And of course, maybe it's for other people as well, of course. So it's actually the beginning of a chapter called Exposing the Dark. Interesting. It starts with, I allow the dark to teach me. I embrace the light. I choose to use my power to transform dark into light. I choose light. And then it goes on to, we must understand the dark that we might protect ourselves and others against its power. Acknowledge that there is dark so that you might be prepared to protect yourself and others against it. There is purpose in dark. If we knew no dark, we would not know its opposite. This does not mean that we embrace, only that we understand its purpose and power, allow it to teach us and help us progress. We can learn how to transform dark into light. We must practice our agency, our power to choose and prove ourselves. We thank the dark for allowing us this opportunity of growth. It assists us in the opportunity to prove ourselves and learn about agency. There is a power at the head of this. Power beyond our comprehension. It is real and should not be ignored. A caution before moving forward in this chapter, we call it when we think about it. We must see that dark is what dark is and beware of its power. For those who are light warriors, you know that there is times to enter the dark and that being prepared is absolutely imperative in order to protect against its power. It has the ability to act like many things of light, and it's been working to trap light for a long time. Dark has developed skills to manipulate all who allow it to allow its power. Those in this world know of dark, for it swirls all around us constantly. It finds strength when people give up their own power of choice, and many things feed the dark. But it keeps going, but I love that because you were just talking about a tool, such a powerful tool to get ourselves to be capable of, when it comes at us, instead of rejecting it, or instead of, we give it 90 seconds, basically. We say, all right.
You know, and also Rajneesh taught us a really beautiful meditation. And when he first described it, I thought, oh my God, who would want to do that? He said, you in all the pain of the world, breathe in all the anger of the world, breathe in all the hate, breathe in all the violence. And I'm thinking, why would I want to do that? He said, because the heart is a transformer. And so if you breathe into your heart, the heart will transform evil into good. It'll transform pain into pleasure. It'll transform anger into love. Trust the heart, which is an energy transformer. Just trust it. And don't be afraid to pull in the darkness. As long as you're focused on your heart, breathing into your heart will do the work of transforming that energy for you. That's what it does. The heart looks out and it sees one, right? The mind sees all these good, bad, right, wrong, but the heart sees the one. And so don't be afraid of those dark things. Take them in. And when we have a breath with us, then you breathe it in and your breath turns right around. You breathe it right back out again. It doesn't come in and get stuck and locked and stay inside of you and bounce around and cause havoc. You pull it in, you let it go, end of story. And we can start to do that for any kind of negativity. Take it in. It's raining on you anyway. Let it through and don't use your force to, I've worked with people who have these rituals. For example, you build a pyramid of white light around to protect you. And, you put up a protection and it keeps something in as well as it keeps something out. And you might put up a door and lock your door and a wall to keep out an enemy, but it's also going to keep your friends out. And it's also going to keep your power in. And so I don't believe in the protection thing. Who am I protecting myself from? Myself, God, light, love? I'm not going to go there. The Course in Miracles says any defense is an attack. And I feel that. I believe that.
Yes.
That's been my experience.
Yes. I love that. Like just the visual of taking in that breath and transmuting it through that powerful, beautiful heart and then breathing it back out, just that in and out. And to believe that our hearts are that powerful. Every one of us is given that God heart.
Oh, yeah. People say, oh, you broke my heart. And we talk about the heart in this romantic way, like it's so fragile and easily, but it's the strongest part of us. It's the most powerful part we have. It's the part that we least need to protect is our heart. And so, we just got to trust it. And we don't have to do the transforming of the energy. The heart does that by itself. We just have to breathe from our heart, and it just happens by itself. You can't breathe into your heart without beginning to feel love and connection and peace and joy. It's just, that's the qualities of the heart.
What seems different about you and what you're teaching is sometimes people seem to have this, in the quote new age, right? Let's just focus on the light. But no, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what you're sharing either. You're just saying, see it all as one with the breath and experience it and enjoy it. My dad teaches, he works in a jail. And he does what's called art therapy, but he brings them to a deep state through meditation and this breath. Yes, and he volunteers once a week, which is pretty incredible. But he loves to tell the inmates that he's going to give them something that's absolutely free that they can then experience nirvana, and they love that.
Yeah. Wow, what great work. I love going into prisons too. And what an opportunity. If you're stuck in a jail, you might as well call it an ashram, monks lock themselves up in a little cell for years on purpose. So, hey, you happen to find yourself there. Why not do some inner work? Place, good time.
Yes. So I know we've only got a few minutes left. I just feel like I know that I could keep going and ask so many questions, but one that's coming to my mind is, if you've shared so much information, right, and light and wisdom, and I've got my friends messaging me being like, oh, this is so great. We have, this one said, this just is another point of how important it is for people to be aware of the breath and how powerful it is. What has been going through your mind lately of how, besides your book, how we can share this with more people?
Breathing is entering the mass mind these days. I see it everywhere. It's like on billboards, movie scenes, the trailer. Watch the new trailer for the new Star Wars movie.
Okay.
Watch the trailer. It's amazing. The first word is breathe. It's like amazing. So it's breath work, breathing training, breath awareness, conscious breathing. It's entering the mainstream mind in a big way. People are waking up to it because it's time. And so we can help it by talking about it, by practicing it, sharing what we know, and encouraging other people to play with it.
Dan Brule, thank you so much. I really do appreciate this wisdom and light, and I know the others will too as well. And so I love you. And everybody, enhance the light.